Hello there, what is going on everyone? Today we're going to be talking about our top 10 worst command cards in Star Wars Legion. I've already done a top 10 best command cards, so that kind of begs the question, is this even a top 10 list, or is this more of a bottom 10 list? I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you think it should be, labeled as a bottom 10 list, or the best of the worst best, but these are the cards I love to hate. I can't stand using. I will usually swap out for somebody else, but if I have to use them, I do it begrudgingly. I'll give you another chance. I'll try to run this card, try to make it work. And at least for me, these are the cards that always come up short. I want to hear what you think is going to be on this list. So, definitely pause the video throughout and let me know in the comments what you think. I'm curious what your top three are. How many of those top three worst cards are going to make this list? It's a fun. I'll talk about why I put these cards on here. We've got them from all over, and with all that being said, I'm going to just go ahead and jump right in. Also, make sure you subscribe and like the video, share the video, all that good stuff. So I'm going to start off with number 10. This is going to be Sabotaged Communications. This is the Rebel generic, the Rebel specific generic 1-pip card. Now, look, I think somebody will say it's kind of unfair to put generics on here. Would you put standing orders on this list? And I said, no, absolutely not, because standing orders is great. Couldn't even play the game without it. You need to have it, right? This is one of those lists I only include when I absolutely positively have to have it. Like if I'm running no Rebel heroes at all. Granted, I almost never do that. And it's a little unfair. So put it at the, this is the number 10. It's not at the top of the list. But its only purpose really is to serve a Rebel list that has no heroes. And I get that they wanted to make these generics that were the faction-specific generics a little better than a regular 1-pip. And so that's cool, but it's kind of restrictive because it's a 1-pip, but I can only issue an order to Special Forces or an Operative with it. So it is restrictive. It also has the special ability to kind of help make up for that. Hey, while an opponent's issuing orders to using a command card, they can only issue one order with that card. Like, that sounds really cool, except it's not. The reason I say that is when you run this card, it's usually like, shoot, I absolutely positively have to go first right now. I need to run a 1-pip. And usually in that case, your opponent, at least every single time I've ever run this card, it's always been met by another 1-pip and has never once mattered in all of my games. It's like, oh, did you run Sabotage Communication? Whether I run it or somebody else runs this against me, it's never had any effect. It's always just been a generic 1-pip with the added restriction of you can only issue an order to Special Forces or an Operative. Not really that crazy about it. Not really that crazy about it. So it's coming in at number 10. And number 9 is going to be an entire Legion by Palpatine. Now, I know what you're saying. Palpatine, but he's amazing. He is amazing. He's fantastic. And his other 2 command cards are amazing. This one stinks. It stinks like Bantha Poodoo. And I'm going to tell you why it stinks. Look, it says each eligible unit. That's cool. They still have to be within range. Hence, they have to be eligible. But, dude, here's the problem. A 3-pip typically gives you 3 orders. This is coming to Palpatine, who has less need to issue orders than most other Imperial commanders because he's got entourage, right? He already is going to probably have a Royal Guard next to him. That dude's already getting an order. So you got to think, with a list that has Palpatine in there, how much order variety do you really have and need board control with? When I have run this card, I have never needed to run it. It's always just been, well, I guess I'm just going to play a 3-pip this time. It's just, it usually doesn't help me. Like, a card that's issuing an order to every available unit, giving you full board control, has value when you have a number of different... If I've got ATSTs out there, if I've got speeder bikes, if I've got special forces, if I've got operatives and commanders, and I've got a wide variety in my list, then something like this has some value. Although usually you kind of want something special from your 3 pips other than just issuing orders. This doesn't do any of that. It just issues orders. But its special thing is it's issuing even more orders. The problem is a generic 3 pip would be just as good in most Palpatine lists. you're giving one of those orders to Palpatine. You're giving a free order to Royal Guard, so that one doesn't even count. It also, like, it basically wipes out his entourage ability for that turn, because that guy was getting an order anyway. You got to have your core, and Palpatine's already expensive, so it's not like a lot of Palpatine lists are running, you know, a couple of ATSTs, speeder bikes, and operatives also. You know, you can't really afford very much of that if you're going to meet your core requirements, meet your list requirements. So, like, this would probably work in, like, if you're doing a Grand Army game, like a 1600-point battle or something like that, then this would work. But in a standard game, this one just ends up being way too much board control when a regular 3-pip would suffice just fine. So I feel like you're getting denied a useful 3-pip card by including this. And I feel like in the grand scheme of things, this was the tax to make Palpatine's other cards so very good. It's like, hey, we can't give him 3 cards that are all Grand Slam home runs. We've got to give him a dud. And so this was the dud. And usually when I'm running Palpatine, I never include this anymore. I definitely did a couple of times, gave it the good college try multiple times, but not anymore. Probably never again. Okay, number 8. It's going to be Merciless Munitions by Bossk. Now, this is a cool card. So why is it on this list? Because it does not fit Bossk's playstyle. It's a card that you would play only if things have gone disastrously wrong, and I can see that there is some value in that. Like, the card it's not broken. It works. Well, it works better against biologicals. In the rise of the Clone Wars and the more and more droid lists coming out, and then Geonosians that have more and more droids, the Dioxis charge has become slightly less great. You know, it's not as surefire of a winner as far as bombs go, but it's still, you know, it's okay. But Bossk is the type of guy who's going to sit, you know, doing lying in wait. He's going to sit safely away from everybody else, trying to score that bounty and trying to get somebody at range 4. He's somebody that you typically want to play up close and personal. Obviously, this is a card that you can run to, you know, in case somebody charges Bossk, but Bossk already has the claws. He can already regenerate. You know, it's not a card you often see being used with Bossk, especially because Bossk is an operative. You're already going to have another commander. You probably have better 1-pip options with those other folks. So this card just ends up not getting taken very much because it doesn't really synergize with his play style. It synergizes with if you're either playing him, you know, very, very differently. I don't want to say wrong, because if you want to play melee Bossk, go for it. Have fun with it. You should have fun with the games. He's got claws for a reason. Go ahead and use them if you want to. But, you know, if you're playing competitively, you're probably having him set up in a safe distance. And people usually don't want to charge him. And, well, it depends on how much, you know, it's situational. But a lot of people don't want to charge him anyway, unless they can do a really dedicated charge, because of the fact that he can heal. And he's also not super, you know, he's not helpless if you charge him. This is even more to that effect, and it just ends up not getting taken because there's usually better opportunities. So really, the lack of synergy is why I made this list. Moving on up to number 7. Oh, it's my boy ObiWan Kenobi coming in there with General Kenobi. I hate this card. I just do. Sorry. It's just, I feel like it has potential. Like, I feel like it should work. Maybe this is a card that was born to be included in skirmish lists. If you're playing on a 3x3, you know, and you're doing that. But General Kenobi's a melee. He's not a sit back and like hang out, right? Again, it's lack of synergy. It's the same reason that, you know, Bossk's card was on here. He wants to be up close and personal. The clones don't usually want to be quite that close, but they can. But they usually don't. Usually, Kenobi is farther ahead, getting ready to play his hello there, and trying to you know, get in there and just whack-a-mole with enemy people that didn't get away fast enough. So whenever I've played this card, it's always been that Kenobi is, you know, needs the surge token, you know, but there's not enough units that are close by to make this work. I want to say 90% of the time, he's gotten no effect of this. Now, the cool thing is, like, this is a good card for early on when your list is, like, deployed and they're all close together, because then you can actually get all of those surge tokens. But you really don't need those surge tokens early on when you're out of shooting range and you're kind of just moving to get into position. So the times that I would want to play this card are the times that, from my games and my experience running ObiWan Kenobi, it ends up being much less than effective. And I feel like to make this card work, you have to keep everybody together. And that's just not how Obi-Wan wants to play. He doesn't want to be right next to the clones all the time, especially if they're longer range clones. And the clones are trying to stay together because clones come in a variety of ranges, 2 to 3 to 4. But Kenobi is melee. He wants to be engaged. And I almost always find him just out of range of all the clones to benefit from it. And yeah, while it can still help the clones, it's just really lackluster and doesn't do what I think it ought to do, because it's really supposed to be... I look at this card as a card that can help Obi-Wan Kenobi. Because again, it has to give him one of the orders. So I can't just say, oh, I'm going to help all those clones back there, and they're going to have some surge. No, one of them has to come to Obi-Wan. So I'm only really helping 2 clones. And since the clones can't share tokens as well as they used to anymore, this card's even worse than it used to be. So while I could see like, hey, it's giving out some tokens to the clones also, so that's cool. I'm like, yeah, but they can't make as good a use of them as they used to, and that's a shame. I wonder if they'll ever revisit that. Okay, moving on. So that was number 7. We're gonna move up to number 6. Also Clone Wars era. It's General Grievous, the biggest garbagey tin can on the planet. Look, I want to love Grievous, but cards like this make it hard. Crush them. It's General Grievous and 2 units. When General Grievous issues an order to a unit, the unit gains a surge token for each defeated enemy unit. Very similar to the last card. Kind of junky. Look, every time I've run this card, maybe not every time, but at least this one can potentially give Grievous a surge token. However, it's very conditional. And if you aren't doing well, this card makes you do worse. So this card takes a bad situation and amplifies it. Because now all of a sudden you've got a 3-pip that's a little restrictive because Grievous has to get one of the orders, which is okay, because sometimes you want Grievous to have an order. But if you're not doing well and you haven't killed anything, this effect doesn't help you at all. This only helps you if you're crushing your opponent already. And at that point, you don't need the extra help, right? Like if you're already killed half your opponent's list, all of a sudden, boom, there's all the surge tokens. But for the most part, like if you haven't killed anything yet, this card does nothing for you. And I hate that. I hate that. Sometimes a command card's supposed to give you that little boost to have like, hey, I can catch up. This card's gonna turn the tide of the game. I'm like, no. This card doesn't turn any tides. This card just says, oh, you're having a really bad day, buddy. Oh man, you're struggling over there. Well, talk to you later. That's what this card does, and that's why I hate it, because it crushes my soul. Moving on to number 5, it's Fight Another Day. Gar Saxon, the biggest turd in the entire... I'm sorry, I'm using colorful language today. In the entire Shadow Collective. I don't like Gar Saxon, and this is one of the big reasons why. It's... Okay, look. It's restrictive because you got to run Shadow Collective. You can run very, very specific lists. Battle Force cards kind of are supposed to be a little stronger than other stuff because you can't just run them in any old list. And currently, Gar Saxon can still only be run in the Shadow Collective. Maybe this will get better someday because he'll be able to be run in a better selection of lists. And yeah, it's Gar Saxon and 2 troopers, but it's got this massive restriction. He can't issue orders beyond range 1. Cannot issue orders beyond range 1. That's rough. And it's got some cool things. Hey, when he issues an order to somebody, they gain a dodge token, and then him and friendly units gain friendly Mandalorians basically gain outmaneuver. But he's got other cards that do that already. That's kind of his thing, is letting Mandalorians kind of use dodge tokens to stay alive. And so that's cool, but you can't issue those orders beyond range 1. So Gar Saxon's pretty much a sniper you don't have to play him as a sniper, but again, this kind of goes into the Bosk thing. I feel like this one doesn't really synergize with Gar Saxon, what Gar Saxon really wants to do. And he's just getting a dodge token out of it. It's basically a 2-pip that many times is going to give just Gar Saxon an order. And I don't like that. And it's just going to be, it's a 2-pip for a 1 dodge token. Now, granted, you still get the extra effect of, you know, your other Mandalorians being able to use dodges to, you know, to cancel critical results. But it just seems very underwhelming for a Battle Force specific character's 2-pip. And 2-pips usually do very cool things. And so, extremely underwhelming. Not happy with this card. It doesn't do favors for Gar Saxon, who's somebody I'm already not a big fan of. So yeah, there we go. Fight another day. Maybe fight now and play this card another day, like in the campfire. Okay. Of all the cards that AMG left out of the Gar Saxon pack, this should have been the one. They should have included his shield and left this one out. Okay. All right. I'm going to move on. We're going to move on. At this point, let me know what you guys have in your, in the final 4. I want to hear about it. What do you think is going to make the top 4 cut? Be sure to click the links in the video description as well. You can check out social media links and also our Discord. Jump in our Discord and keep the discussion going. All right. Number 4. This one's going to be controversial. It's Witch Magic. Okay, so Darth Maul, or a.k.a. Maul, when he came to the Shadow Collective, brought some more cards. This one you can really only run with Shadow Collective Maul. And look, I get it. All right, I get it. It's healing Maul. He starts with a wound on him already. Okay, yeah, he might need healing. I can see that. You don't have the medics in that battle force. So you needed some way to be able to heal Maul, who already starts with a wound. It only heals 2 wounds, so if you do it early, you might not get the most out of it. If you do it too late, you won't get to play it at all. And that's really the problem, but it's not the whole problem. But that's one of the bigger problems I have for this card, is that it's so timing sensitive to get the most out of it. The ideal time to play this is Maul has taken 2 wounds after Shadow Collective Maul, who's got the 1 wound. He's basically at a 3 wound, state in the game, and you play this and heal 2 of those wounds. So he still has just the 1 wound token, still gets to take his 3 actions every turn, and that's great to do that. But the problem is it doesn't always work out that way. That more often than not, when people start shooting Maul, especially if you're running Shadow Collective Maul, they know that he can heal, so they kind of come at him pretty hard, and you end up, at least in my case, every time I've tried to run Maul, he doesn't always die on the first turn, but he always dies in 1 turn. So once he gets and he moves in, and he's ready to start, swinging sticks, or glowing sticks at bad guys or good guys, depending on who you're fighting. He doesn't have long for this world once he engages. And that's the problem, is you'd be tempted to just run this card before it's most efficient. You'd be tempted to run this card early. People don't usually just take 1 shot at Maul and we put an extra wound on him, let's leave him there. No. And of course you could end up healing him so much that he loses an action. So that could also be a bad thing. But the other reason why this one's ranked so much higher on the list, because that alone wouldn't have made it rank this high. It would have just been, it might not have even made this list at all. It might have just been somewhere in the middle on a card that I'm kind of lukewarm about. But the other thing that makes this one rank so much higher on this list is that this takes the place of one of your 1-pips. And it's going to be a 3-pip. It counts as a 1-pip during list building. So it means, depending on what cards you're running, you might only have a single 1-pip. Now, the reason they did this is because Maul already had 2 1-pips. One of them counts as a 3-pip. And so if you're going to run all 6 Maul cards, they didn't want you to have 3 Darth Maul 1-pips. And I can understand that. But still, that being said, anytime I'm running Maul, I'm going to drop this card and actually have 3 1-pips. So I don't like to run this card with Maul. I've tried it. Again, my Maul gets focused fire down very, very quickly. Now, granted, maybe some of you play Maul a little differently and don't have the same problem. Maybe you're playing against people who have had bad luck in their dice against Maul, and this card could potentially work out. And again, every card in here could potentially work out. Every card has a use case where it is effective. The problem is the use case for this one, in my experience, is exceedingly slim, and the cost for it is exceedingly high. Moving on to number 3. We have Voracious Ambition. I used to like this card. This one got worse over time, and currently I don't think it has much value at all, especially compared to where it sits in the pip category. So Director Krennic, character I really liked in the early days of Star Wars Legion. When he came out, with Death Troopers came out, I was running him a lot. I thought he was very, very cool. And this one pip, honestly, wasn't terrible at the beginning of the game. It's gotten worse over time. So what this one does is the idea of this card is it's trying to give you total board control. And I can see that. But board control isn't always one of those things that I am in desperate need for. And there's enough things that have come out that you don't always need board control. Again, board control on a character that has entourage already. You're seeing a trend here. We go back to Palpatine with an entire Legion. He didn't need total board control. He already has a mechanic that gives him some of that already, and you're already going to play some command card. Voracious Ambition is also kind of sort of already doing that. You've already got Krennic getting an order from this because it's a 1-pip. It gives him an order. You already have an order going to a Death Trooper. You probably have some core. If you're running a Krennic gunline list, it's very popular to have those Scarif troopers. So your shore troopers with the mortars, you know, they can take HQ uplink, you know, and then give the mortar an order already. So in all of my Krennic lists, I've already had pretty much full and total board control. The only real reason you need this is if you're running like a heavy with this list or something that's going to struggle to get an order, and but it's not even guaranteed to help you get that. So the way this works is you're going to take 3 orders face down, put them on this card, and then you can look at them at any time you want, and then you can grab those. The problem is you might get 3 core on Voracious Ambition, and then that extra, like your snipers or your heavy or something else that's in this list, you still don't get that order control. It helps a little bit because you're less likely to pull them from the bag when you have to do that. But it can help, but I feel like we've seen more and more cards like Seize the Opportunity and of course HQ Uplink and more proliferation of other mechanics that do the same thing better. Especially on a guy who already has entourage that's already thinning the pool automatically by getting a Special Forces out of your bag and face up onto a Death Trooper, who, by the way, Death Troopers are great candidates for early orders. So that's kind of like, it's I can see why they made it, but the thing that makes it so high on this list, while it's not super effective, is that it's a 1-pip. Like, there's intense, like, 1-pip is a highly contested slot. 1-pips are supposed to be cards that, like, win you the game. It's supposed to be cards that are soul-crushing. And this is just a very mediocre effect. It's like, oh, it was a little nicer, you know? It's like the equivalent of, oh, it's kind of a warm day. Oh, well, the air conditioning came on. Well, the air conditioning's not on, but we brought out a fan, so you're going to be a little cooler. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's nice, kind of. I'm like, oh, here, I made you some lemonade on a hot summer's day. Oh, great. But there's no ice cubes in it, so it's just kind of lukewarm lemonade. I'm like, okay, well, that's better than nothing, but for a 1-pip, I expect it to be better than that, you know? So it's like lukewarm lemonade to me. And that's number 3, Voracious Ambition. And I need a little more from Krennic because I'd like to run him more. I feel like he's also been overshadowed a little bit by a lot of the newer Imperial stuff that's come out. He's not quite as good as he used to be. He's still got value. I still like him. I'd like to run him more. All right, moving on to number 2. Let's have it. Number 2, we're returning to General Grievous one more time with Supreme Commander. Hate this card. Hate this card. The good thing about this card is it's a 2-pip that issues 2 orders to 2 troopers. It's not as good as a generic 2-pip, because then you could at least issue orders to anywhere, like to vehicles if you had it. But if you're running only troopers in a Grievous list, then this is at least as good as a generic. So that's good. Look, there's all kinds of reasons for me to hate this card. It may have gotten a little bit better with the Electrostaff guys. But for most of Grievous's lists that I've run, your droids are doing one thing. They want to shoot. They want to stay all together. You know, you want to get your droid, your B1 line going and things like that. Grievous is usually not staying in the back and being like, the whole purpose of this was that you didn't have those guys, so you needed your B1s to do Guardian for them. Oh, okay, cool. All right. And like Grievous was like, oh, they're shooting me, protect me, guys. Oh, I'm gonna stay in the back with my gun line, right? Grievous doesn't play that way. Like, he's not that type of commander. When the Clone Wars launched, Grievous was the Darth Vader for the Separatists. He has got the close range. He's got, you know, great. He had the ability to close the gap very easily before they nerfed scale into oblivion. But he would move in. He would get in, you know, into range of everybody. Try to hit that one pip. You know, he was great in melee with the double lightsabers. He is he's basically a lead from the front commander. And this card completely goes one. Like, this is a card you'd play if you were going to keep Grievous in the back, and that's not like this would be a great card for the T1 series, right? This would be a great card for a super tactical droid, somebody who wants to stay in the rear, support troops. But Grievous doesn't do that. He doesn't have the toolkit to just stay in the rear and give out, you know, tokens and support and stuff to other. He's a lead from the front commander, and to do that, you need to have, you know, to make this work, you'd have to have him leading from the front. You'd have to have all of the droids moving with him at the exact same speed and time, and that's just not how Grievous lists tend to go. There's probably some uses for him. Like I said, everything in this, every card on this list has a use case where it can do its job, and this one certainly does. But that's never happened for me. This has always been one of those times where every time I've tried to play this, it's always been in one of those situations where I'm like, no, there's a better card for me to play. No, there's a better card in this situation. There's a better card. And then I only end up playing this card when it's my only 2-pip left, and I'm hoping that when my opponent's already played their 1-pips, and I'm hoping to go first before he kills Grievous, because Grievous charged in, did his 1-pip already, and I'm like, I'm hoping I can win the roll, and so at least I get to play a 2-pip. This is just a big turd of a card. I'm not liking it. So Supreme Commander comes in at number 2. Turd. It's a number 2. Get it? Boom. Oh my gosh, terrible. All right, and we're gonna move on to number 1. Now, there's some bias in this for number 1 for me. Your number 1 may be different than my number 1, but this number 1 used to be my favorite command card in the game. Have you guessed what it is? Take that, Clankers from Clone Captain Rex. It went from my favorite card to I hate it worse than anything else in the whole world, because they nerfed the oblivion out of it, making it completely useless. Okay, so it's a 2-pip, has the same restriction to troopers. This used to be a great card because it used to say that your troops with face-up order tokens that have an aim can extend the range by 1 up to a maximum of 4. Which was really cool. But it's been nerfed so much that it's taken all of the synergy that it had with these lists and thrown it out the window. And the key distinction is now they have to perform an aim action during their activation. You have to perform an aim action. It has to be during your activation. And that's a big problem because clones had lots of ways of getting aims without having to take an aim action. There was a whole... I mean, Rex Star was a big deal, and there were a whole lot of clone synergies that would totally take advantage of this. I had a really good tournament success with running this card before it was nerfed. And the idea was, even before Phase 2s came out, I remember. But you could run Phase 1 clones with a specialist. You can get a free aim action, a free aim token from them. Now, keep in mind that the aim token always had to be on the clones. It always had to be on the clones. It couldn't like, oh, they're going to borrow a name from a nearby clone. So the nerfing of clone token sharing doesn't really hurt this all that much. That didn't really have much to do with this. But you used to be able to get the aim token from a free action from a specialist, or if you gave it the clone captain in the unit, and you could gain training you could then move and exhaust your training to get a free aim token after a move. And the beauty of all of that is that you could move forward, get a free aim token in both, whether you had a specialist or you had a training upgrade. You can move forward, get a free aim token, and you still have the ability to shoot and now extend your range. So really, it was almost a range 5 shot. So I would run a clone unit with a Z6, and then I go, boom, I went up, and now I get to shoot even farther. So you add the length of my move to the extra range of the attack, and all of a sudden, I've got kind of sniper Z6, and that was really cool. Now, fast forward to the way it is now, the unit has to take an aim action. Now, you only have 2 actions. You only have 2 actions. So if one action has to be an aim, that means you can't move. So that means you're going to aim and shoot. And that is awful. Because that means I can't move. It means I don't have the mobility that I had to. It also means that that extra range isn't nearly as big of a deal as I thought it was going to be, because I could have just moved and shot and got the range. As a matter of fact, that's sometimes better. It's usually better to move and shoot. Usually, not always. But it's often, I should say, better to move and shoot because you're usually trying to get towards an objective. This game is not just a deathmatch. It's an objective game and a deathmatch. It's like a hybrid, right? So you're trying to get to objectives. So moving and shooting is usually a good thing. Having to stand still and shoot hurts you in the long run. So that's a bad thing. And then also, there's the chance that you might not need the aim token. And since clones also have been nerfed so many times, and this happened after a ton of other clone nerfs, which, again, they've nerfed Republic so many times, and poor clones. And granted, they were crazy, crazy strong for a very long time, so I get it. It's been just nerf. But so this compounds with the fact that if you end up not needing that aim token, it may not even be eligible to be used on another clone if they need to borrow a surge from somebody else or something like that. If you do this on both, you can't. Your third guy won't be able to pull both aims off of them afterwards. So you can still pull one. You can still help another clone. It's just a little harder. You have to be more picky. You have to be more selective on when you're pulling tokens from other clones. So all that to say, it may not be as worse as every other card on here, although I do think I still stand by the fact that it's the #1 crappiest card in the game right now. But the reason I put it at the #1 spot is from how far it fell. It used to be an incredibly good card, a very, very useful card, and that could get you shooting on turn 1. You might even kill a unit on turn 1. I've done it before. Taken out like dewbacks that were going to charge in and just mess my day up like on turn 1. With doing all this, and it's been really, really cool, and it was nerfed so much that it's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. I would have rather, because like there's no use for it anymore. And the other thing that that I'm gonna throw in there is that Rex is okay. Rex isn't bad, but one of Rex's biggest, I'd say, reasons to include him was this card. So by nerfing this card into being useless, they've also made it a lot more difficult to take one of the coolest characters in all of the Republic, that being Rex. So, that's another reason, because Rex's other cards are just okay. This was his power card. Everybody's got it's some kind of balancing act. Remember, I was talking about with Palpatine. He's got great cards, so they couldn't give him all great cards. Well, this was Rex's super ultra powered card, and they didn't improve his other cards to make it better. They didn't, improve Rex to make it better. They nerfed this into oblivion, kind of taking Rex off the table, and then nerfed the rest of the clones, so you wouldn't have wanted to run them anyway, right? At the time, they've gotten a little bit better over time. There's, Republic has seen a little bit of help. I think they're getting to a point where, they're more viable. But at this point, I feel like you only take Rex if you're trying to be thematic and you just really like Rex and you're playing for fun. But yeah, this card, the nerf that it got was just completely terrible. So if you have the original, take that, Clankers. Have fun running it the original way. You won't be able to do that in any kind of organized play because it's not what it does anymore. But yeah, I think back to those days with smiles because it used to be a really great card. All right, guys, that's my top 10 list of the top 10 worst cards, worst command cards in Star Wars Legion. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Did I miss anything off of this list that you really don't like? And we'll go from there. We'll keep the discussion going in Discord. And I want to thank all of my patrons. You guys are absolutely out of this world and help make this whole channel possible. Thank you so much for your continued support. I will talk to you later. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. And always wash your socks.